Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. Purple Moon Holy Land would no longer exist in Universe Ocean. The true gods seated down there looked at each other. They all knew it. If the ancestral gods who could talk to the original mind of the original universe said the crisis of the sector beasts had passed, then it was the truth. Luo Feng really might have been the one who was attacking Purple Moon Holy Land. After all, aside from the sector beasts, only Luo Feng was powerful enough to destroy Purple Moon Holy Land. How powerful was Luo Feng? None of the true gods knew exactly, but they all knew he was powerful. They hadn't witnessed how he had killed all those 8 million sector beasts. But they had seen 900,000 sector beasts rush to Universe Ocean and destroy the miniature universes of the first and the second universe eras. At least, the true gods from the two universe eras had seen it. The sector beasts could easily annihilate all the races. However, they had all been destroyed by Luo Feng. If the sector beasts were terrifying to begin with, then what about Luo Feng? The one who had annihilated all the sector beasts. It was terrifying to even think about it. In addition to his other achievements. In the world of Jin, hundreds of universe masters had been killed at the same time. As just a universe master, he had become the most powerful great being in Universe Ocean. Divine Eye True God and others had machine-type valuables, yet they were still no match for Luo Feng. When he became a true god, all the races, including the true gods, saluted him. It all demonstrated the extraordinary power of Milky Way Horde leader. Inside Purple Moon Holy Land. Perhaps Luo Feng wasn't lying. He did kill many sector beasts, but there's a chance that there are some that remain. Purple Moon Ancestor's eyes gleamed, and he yelled. Tell the original universe that there are still some sector beast. Tell Milky Way Horde leader to come here and kill the sector beast. Everyone was silent. Many universe masters looked up at Purple Moon Ancestor. Purple Moon Ancestor frowned and yelled, "What's happening?" Ancestor, yelled a universe master standing down there. A piece of news just arrived from the original universe. Milky Way Horde leader admitted that it's him who's attacking Purple Moon Holy Land. Luo Feng wants to destroy Purple Moon Holy Land. What? Purple Moon Ancestor was shocked. Impossible, he roared in a rage. It can't be Luo Feng. It has to be sector beast. It's sector beasts that are eating the origin of my miniature universe. Ancestor, the original mind of the original universe, already told the three ancestral gods that the sector beast crisis was already over, cried an elder with 3 heads and 8 arms. That Luo Feng has immense power, and he indeed destroyed all the sector beasts. He's more horrifying than the sector beast. He must be using some special skills to deal with this holy land. Everyone was crying. They were filled with regret. If the Holy Land was destroyed, the entire race would go extinct. None of them were afraid of death. However, they would be damned if the entire race was annihilated. But what could they do? Try to stop him? All of them combined were nothing compared to a single strike from Luo Feng. How? How is it possible? Purple Moon Ancestor was horrified. Even the original mind of the original universe admitted it. Luo Feng. He's attacking my miniature universe. He's only a true god. How can he destroy my miniature universe? Purple Moon Ancestor found it hard to believe. Even if Luo Feng was at a supreme level, this was, after all, a miniature universe of true gods of void space. How could it be destroyed? Purple Moon Ancestor had set Luo Feng up without any fear that Luo Feng would take revenge. He hadn't believed Luo Feng could do anything to him. And that was true. Luo Feng, indeed, couldn't do anything about the miniature universes of true gods of void space, but the king of the sector beasts could. The king of the sector beasts was even able to eat the origin of the original universe, not to mention Purple Moon Holy Land. Go meet Luo Feng. These are his coordinate. Purple Moon Ancestor clenched his teeth. Ask him if he will spare the billions of lives from Purple Moon Holy Land. We'll say yes to any conditions he has. Yes, Ancestor. More than 10 beings rushed out immediately. Perhaps it was shameful for them to beg for mercy, But temporary shame was still better than the extinction of their races and the loss of all hope. How did I get here? Purple Moon Ancestor raised his head and closed his eyes. 15 great beings flew out to where Purple Moon Ancestor sensed the source of the swallowing. At those coordinates, all 15 great beings instantly teleported and drew close to the coordinates. Endless golden waves permeated. Milky Way Horde Leader, if you're willing to spare all the lives in Purple Moon Holy Land, we'll say yes to any conditions. The 15 great beings flew into the golden waves and moved forward. A wave rushed toward them, and all 15 great beings were instantly annihilated. Deep in the area, Luo Feng and Morosa stood there while Morosa was performing his ability to absorb. Luo Feng sneered. You tried to destroy the human race before. Why didn't you think of the billions of lives of my race? You tried to destroy my race before, so don't blame us for you dying out. Luo Feng didn't even care to negotiate. He killed everyone who approached. Luo Feng wouldn't allow the beings from Purple Moon Holy Land to come here. Otherwise, the great beings from Purple Moon Holy Land would see Morosa. Perhaps they wouldn't have been able to tell that Morosa was a sector beast, but just in case, Luo Feng didn't want the great beings from Purple Moon Holy Land to see Morosa. Luo Feng wouldn't tell anyone from the original universe about the existence of Morosa. After all, it was related to lots of things. There were too many mysteries in Universe Ocean. The body of the godly king of Jin that had flown from the depths of Universe Ocean made Luo Feng realize that there might be some secrets in Universe Ocean that were unknown. When the king of the sector beasts reached the pinnacle level, it had been a catastrophe even in the ancient civilization, and it had been easy for it to destroy Jin country. He couldn't let the news out. Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. The original universe is about to be destroyed. This scene is extremely shocking. Previously, I have seen it with my own eyes. Amidst the void space that was filled with chaotic airflow, on a grey ship, rampaging devil god was telling everyone else about the previous cycle that he had personally witnessed. Beside him were many universe masters, universe knights, undying fighters, and even a portion of talents who were cultivated in key aspects. How much longer before the destruction of the original universe? We are amidst the void space. During the destruction of the original universe, will we be affected where we are? Quite a few humans within the hall were raising this question. Don't worry, said rampaging devil god, addressing the crowd in high spirits. We will not be affected at all where we are. Think back properly. Back then, loneliness was indeed torturous. Even if one was invincible, if he led a life of loneliness, then wouldn't he still be in agony? After he moved into Luo Feng's miniature universe, rampaging devil god had rediscovered the happiness of living that he had once lost. He was quite optimistic by nature. Numerous ships and palaces were suspended amidst the void space filled with chaotic airflow. Great beings from various races who had made their way out of the original universe were all waiting in silence, waiting for the moment when the great extermination would happen. Destroying. Starting to destroy. The universe membrane wall is cracking apart. Great beings of the various races were looking at this scene with a mixture of excitement and sorrow. There were still many ordinary beings compared to the number of those who managed to get out of the original universe from their own race who were not able to be relocated. Even Luo Feng's miniature universe, compared to the original universe, was pathetically small. It was destined that almost all the ordinary beings from the various races would be annihilated along with the destruction of the original universe. The destruction of the original universe had begun. Previously, the end of the world had still in the process of gradually occurring, but at that moment, within the entire space of origin, a formidable power was produced instantaneously. This power was crazily devouring everything. Even for the original universe, with its degree of vastness, all of its membrane walls were splitting apart at a crazy rate. Soon after, everything collapsed. Even the universe's secret regions and star fields had begun collapsing. Black holes were disintegrating successively, mineral planets, declining stars, and even some of the planets on which life forms were residing, all of these started collapsing. The moment they started collapsing, It was almost immediate that they were crushed into a flow of countless particles. At this juncture, the origin also started to sharply reduce in size. The energy of every life form was being crazily transmitted to and absorbed by the origin. The countless ordinary life forms leading their daily lives, some babies who had just been born, some elders who were lying in hospitals, some young couples who were showing their love for one another, some enemies who were just fighting and killing one another within a split second, all of them were annihilated. The inexhaustible energy of life was flowing into the core of the entire universe in a frenzy. Silence. Amid the void space of universe ocean, living souls from various other races were on board numerous ships and palaces as they watched the scene of the destruction of the universe unfolding before them. They were all holding their breath out of shock. Even if they had heard descriptions of this scene beforehand, when they actually witnessed it with their own eyes, they were still in total shock. The flow of countless particles formed numerous, huge whirlpools. The powerful tearing force would have likely broken and shattered a miniature universe that entered it within an instant. That violence, that intensity, it made all the great beings hold their breath. The universe masters and true gods, with their ability to control time and space, were all transmitting the images of everything that was happening before them, sending the images incomparably long distances away. Everything became clearly visible. At such a close distance, everything became clearly visible. The shock was so intense that it sent shudders through the hearts of all the great beings. This is the destruction. Teacher Origin was shocked, too. When the destruction of the original universe began, the swallowing process formed such an infinitely strong tearing force that even a trace of it would have been enough to annihilate his entire being. Such a strong and ultimate form of destruction caused even Teacher Origin to shudder in fear. Yet the shock that everyone felt was nothing compared to what Luo Feng felt. These life forms from the various races were outside of the universe ocean, watching the events from afar. On the other hand, Luo Feng's willpower had penetrated into every corner of the original universe. He was like the original universe in its entirety. At the moment the destruction began, the feeling that struck him was overwhelmingly clear. Firstly, within the space of the origin, the beginning of the origin started revolving 10,000 times faster. The revolving speed was inconsistent, being fast at times and slow at other times, causing the countless spots of light, belonging to 100,000 different categories, to shatter and be absorbed away. This, in turn, caused the space of the origin to rapidly reduce in size. The entire origin exerted an incredible swallowing force over its surroundings. Swallow. It was doing its best to swallow. Swallowing all the living beings, all the corpses and carcasses, the entire original universe. Everything collapsed and was destroyed, transforming into countless flows of particles that revolved around and surged into the origin like crazy. All the most fundamental energy of life was completely absorbed back. To get such a massive original universe to be completely destroyed and swallowed in an extremely short period of time. The speed of those energies of life had exceeded 100 billion, even a trillion times light speed. Absolute rage. It was barbarous. When all of the energy of life had been absorbed into the origin of the original universe instantly glowed with dazzling brilliance. That brilliance was so eye-catching that the area it spread over far exceeded the size of the previous original universe. This dazzling brilliance had even spread out far enough to shine upon those watching from within their ships and palaces. So shocking. Beautiful. The living souls of various races were holding their collective breath. The original universe disappeared. Only the origin remained. There was power surging up in a circular pattern surrounding the origin, but no one dared to get close to it. Within the origin, garbed in a white robe, Luo Feng was sat cross-legged right in the middle of the whirlpool. The destruction of the original universe was fleeting and short-lived, yet unforgettable. That scene would be deeply imprinted on Luo Feng's soul. Morosa had shared with me how mysterious the destruction of the origin was, based on his own comprehension. Luo Feng was still shocked, nonetheless. But the destruction of the origin, no matter how mysterious, was, on the contrary, quite a transparent process. It was more like a soundless attack during the destruction process. But the original universe represented the origin of life. The destruction of the origin of life was so much more rapid and violent. The origin of life contained various laws. To start with, there was life and death. There was also destruction. The destruction of the origin of life was entirely different from the elimination of the destruction of the origin. A short destruction was for rebirth, Luo Feng mumbled to himself. Its main purpose was to give life. Everything was for the sake of life. And the destruction of the sector beasts was the destruction of their roots. Numerous scenes of the destruction continued to flash through his mind. Morosa's comprehension of the mystery of destruction also flashed through his mind. Both were forms of destruction, but their cause were entirely different. Luo Feng was completely immersed in all these scenes in his mind. An intangible ripple of willpower swept through Luo Feng as understanding dawned upon him. Time to leave. Peng. Luo Feng, clothed in a white robe, was disintegrated and annihilated right away. This was merely his godly powered avatar. At that moment, Luo Feng simply could not be bothered to be distracted by how he could get one godly powered avatar to slowly fly back. It was more viable to simply disperse and disintegrate it. At Luo Feng's miniature universe, on one of the mountain peaks of 9 sectors mountains, Luo Feng sat cross-legged. He had comprehended for trillions of eras, comprehending the destruction of the origin, comprehending the origin of life. Everything was colliding with one another. The path of destruction. Luo Feng had gradually made his way down a particular path. Combining the destruction of the origin of life and the elimination of the destruction of the origin, he had arrived at a concluding comprehension for both, and everything was gradually taking form. The collision of two entirely different origins brought a great shock to Luo Feng. He needed to sort everything in order to straighten things out. He needed to comprehend an understanding of the situation that could justify all his doubts. If he could comprehend it all, he would be freed of doubts. Time passed. Years went by. I am here by Teacher Origin's order to ask, has Milky Way ancestor completed cultivation? Father God is still in the midst of cultivation and must not be disturbed, Shimo replied in a most direct manner. Previously, Luo Feng and Teacher Origin had an agreement. After comprehending the process of destruction, they would make their breakthroughs to become true gods of void space together. Then they would try to transcend reincarnation. But now, Luo Feng was still immersed in the process of cultivation. Brother Shimo, teacher is still in the midst of cultivation? Naku looked toward the faraway 9 sectors mountains. Young fellow, is it true that you just want to tell teacher that you made a breakthrough to become a universe master? Shimo also cast his gaze over to 9 sectors mountain, where Luo Feng was still seated cross-legged. When teacher has finished cultivating, he will surely learn about it. Naku laughed sheepishly. Time passed. The flowers and plants on 9 sectors mountain had gone through countless cycles of blooming and withering, and countless visitors had come looking for Luo Feng. Even sitting mountain guest had come once, yet Luo Feng remained immersed in comprehension. This time around, he was focusing all of his consciousness on comprehending, without a hint of distraction. Naturally, there was no way he could receive any guests. In the 360,000th era after the destruction of the original universe, Shimo and Morosa were safeguarding 9 sectors mountains, forbidding any other great beings from disturbing Luo Feng. Hua. Seated on the mountain peak, Luo Feng suddenly opened his eyes. Hey! Shimo and Morosa turned at the same time to take a look. Then, in a flash, both of them arrived by Luo Feng's side. Father God, Shimo said in an agitated tone. Master, said Morosa, also very emotional. Luo Feng took a look at both of them and nodded with a smile as he said, Shimo, you can inform everything that I have now stopped cultivating. I suppose there are many who would like to meet me. Understood, Father God, Shimo replied right away. Then he disappeared in a flash. Morosa. Luo Feng looked to his side at his good-natured bodyguard. I suppose you have also been waiting a long time. Morosa merely returned a good-natured smile. Of course, he had waited a long time. He was an ace at dealing with loneliness, and the only opponent that could possibly match him was his master, Luo Feng. Naturally, he would look forward to some other activity for the sake of novelty, for instance, transcending reincarnation. Master, Have you made your breakthrough? Morosa was quick to ask. It's a bit of a process, of course, Luo Feng teased. If no progress was made, even after I personally experienced the destruction of the original universe, then I would be a great, big fool. Before he had started comprehending this time, Luo Feng had already reached the ultimate limit of a true god of void space. For all universe masters, the usual practice was to create secret techniques at the 3rd to the 5th stages. Many universe masters would usually get stuck at the level of the 5th tier as the top. To be able to create a 6th tier secret technique, if one did not choose to take the godly power path, then the achievable level would only satisfy the requirements of becoming a true god. A true god of void space would commonly be around the 11th to 13th stage. If one could create a 14th stage secret technique, then that person could become an eternal true god. When Luo Feng had fought Sector Beast Mo He had been able to create a 12th stage as the top secret technique. After 6 trillion eras of cultivation, coupled with long-term communicating and interaction with Morosa, he had also been able to create a 13th stage as the top secret technique, which was the ultimate limit of a true god of void space. And this time, Luo Feng had spent 360,000 eras comprehending. Of course, he would have made tremendous progress. The destruction of the origin of life. The elimination of the destruction of the origin. This had allowed Luo Feng to comprehend the path of destruction. In terms of achievement, Luo Feng had taken a step up to the eternal true god level. This was because he had personally experienced the destruction of the original universe. After all, in the later stage, it would be exceedingly difficult for him to advance even the tiniest bit. Considering that fact that East Emperor Ancestor and Purple Moon Ancestor had never been able to break through in all this time, it was not difficult to acknowledge matter-of-factly. Feng. A figure flew over. It was none other than Xu Xin, who had come because she knew that Luo Feng had finished comprehending. Luo Feng smiled as he went over to her. You are finally done cultivating. Even Sitting Mountain came looking for you at one point, Xu Xin told him. There's no need to rush, said Luo Feng. Right. Can the original universe be born now? It has already been born, Xu Xin answered with a nod of her head. The new reincarnation era has already begun. Luo Feng's eyes lit up. Come along. We shall go take a look. With one stride, Luo Feng brought Xu Xin along with him. Right away, he shifted their location to the peripheral region of his miniature universe. Then they made their way out. Luo Feng's miniature universe was not far away from the original universe. At first glance, Luo Feng's gaze penetrated the void space, and he could easily see the original universe. At that moment, the original universe was blurred, as it was surrounded by an endless airflow. This was its most primitive state, and it was now slowly and gradually breeding within its interior. Whether this reincarnation era's first life form could be born was still an uncertainty. Flourishing with prosperity to the limit before the Great Decline. Before him, Luo Feng saw a scene that was robust and full of vitality. He could not help whispering, previously, the original universe had multiplied its number to reach an extreme, so the number of those living within it also reached an ultimate limit. Naturally, its endurance also reached an extreme limit. Therefore, there was a rapid and violent great destruction. That destruction was for the sake of the new life of today. Regarding his own path of destruction, his comprehension was even clearer. Luo Feng was struck by a thought. Let's head back. Xu Xin looked at Luo Feng. Teacher Origin has arrived, Luo Feng said. One of Teacher Origin's godly-powered avatars arrived at Luo Feng's miniature universe. How's the comprehension coming along this time? Teacher Origin asked. I've made headway, Luo Feng said. It should be possible to cross over to the eternal level in one swift move. Eternal level? Teacher Origin was far too shocked to maintain his usual calm demeanor. Luo Feng nodded. The progress of my miniature universe is going to take some time. When it is almost done evolving, that will be the time when you should start to develop yours again. This way, both of us can successfully achieve our breakthroughs around the same time. All right, I'll head back and prepare. Teacher Origin nodded. Teacher Origin was aware that being able to gain a thorough comprehension this time was a benefit Luo Feng had gained from resolving the issue of the Sector Beast crisis. Relying on what he had comprehended, Luo Feng had managed to break through the key bottleneck and crossed levels to become an eternal true god. Plus, Luo Feng had once saved his life, so Teacher Origin did not harbor any jealousy toward Luo Feng. Rather, he felt awe and admiration for Luo Feng. After meeting Sitting Mountain Guest, Primal Chaos City Leader, and the rest of the company, Luo Feng started to work on his breakthrough. Rise. Standing within the space of the origin of the miniature universe, Luo Feng shouted out a command. Numerous space portals were successively emerging. Every space portal would appear within the space outside 100,000 heavens without harming any of the plane surfaces. Endless chaotic airflow was gushing into these passageways, and the membrane walls of his miniature universe were starting to grow, spreading out and expanding rapidly. 1.1 billion light-years, 1.2 billion light-years. His miniature universe was undergoing constant outbursts of growth. As his miniature universe got bigger, the space occupied by 100,000 heavens was, on the contrary, reduced, while the amount of void space was increased. With more void space available, Luo Feng was naturally able to bring in more void space passageways. The endless chaotic airflow could then rush in to boost the evolution of his miniature universe. This pleasant occurrence of unrestrained supply to boost the evolution of his miniature universe would only happen when there were breakthroughs. Also, this supply was only for the growth of the miniature universe. The godly power that Luo Feng's body needed for development would have to be accumulated gradually via the absorption and transformation of godly power. 2.9 billion light-years, 3 billion light-years, 3.1 billion light-years. The miniature universe continued to expand. It quickly became much bigger than East Emperor Holy Land. Amidst the void space of Universe Ocean, a great many true gods and universe masters watched from afar. There were some from the human race, some from the Hong Alliance, and also some from other races. All of them were witnessing this grand occasion. It's too big. Exactly how big can it get, this Milky Way Holy Land universe? The diameter has already exceeded 5 billion light-years. It is much bigger than East Emperor Holy Land. Sitting Mountain Guest was also watching everything from afar. He laughed and whispered softly, "It is still too early." This time, Luo Feng was going to become an eternal true god in one swift move, so naturally, it was still too early to expect a final outcome. Expand. Expand like crazy. Finally, a diameter of 10 billion light-years was achieved, and within Milky Way Holy Land universe, Luo Feng's own body was also undergoing a change. Godly power. Luo Feng suddenly opened his mouth and sucked deeply. Within an instant, the godly power that had been swallowed and accumulated over a period of more than 6 trillion eras, which was thereafter transformed and stored as a reserve, came flowing over in a frenzied manner. During this period of more than 6 trillion eras, Luo Feng's godly body had long attained its perfect optimum state. If he were to transform into an ocean, its diameter could be as wide as 12 light-years. At the same time, it could store a tremendous amount of godly power. The breakthrough this time around had brought about the evolution of his godly power by 100 times. After accumulating for more than 6 trillion eras, his godly power reserve was consumed by more than 80%, all within an instant. This brought Luo Feng's body to reach perfection, but such perfection was only at the level of a true god of void space. After accumulating for such a long time, I still don't have enough. Once I become an eternal true god, my godly power will still be lacking a great deal. Luo Feng shook his head. Continue. After the breakthrough of his body, numerous portals started to appear within the void space of his Milky Way Holy Land universe successively. Endless chaotic airflow gushed in to be continuously absorbed and converted, and this allowed for the continuous expansion of his miniature universe. 10.1 billion light-years, 10.2 billion light-years, 30 billion light-years. 60 billion light-years. It continued to expand. Likewise, the length of time required was also extended. True gods and universe masters of various races were stunned into speechlessness. Gosh! Even East Emperor Holy Land universe's diameter was only 3.2 billion light-years. Exactly how big could Luo Feng's Milky Way Holy Land universe get? Plus, Teacher Origin's miniature universe was also starting to undergo a change. Its volume was starting to undergo rapid expansion. Teacher Origin's miniature universe is expanding, too. It has already reached a diameter of 1.8 billion light-years, and it is continuing to expand. I think his miniature universe will not be as fearsome as Milky Way Horde leaders. Great beings of the various other races were discussing the matter among themselves. They could not help but envy the humans because they had two great Holy Land universes. Teacher Origin's miniature universe has already stopped expanding. Its diameter is 52 light-years. That cannot even hold a candle to Milky Way Horde leader's miniature universe. The evolution of Teacher Origin's miniature universe had begun later, but he made it a step earlier in achieving success. By the time his miniature universe had reached a diameter of 5.2 billion light-years, the diameter of Luo Feng's miniature universe had long surpassed 90 billion light-years. After a period of close to 1 month, Luo Feng's miniature universe finally reached a diameter of 100 billion light-years. At long last, everything came to a halt. 100 billion light-years. Even Sitting Mountain Guest was astounded. Legend. This is truly a legend. For a miniature universe at the eternal level to reach this stage, it can be considered perfect. Such a miniature universe could only exist in legends. Father God, this is simply impressive. Shimo was incomparably excited while staying suspended amid the void space. True gods of other races were all stunned and speechless, but the acceptance came easily deep in their hearts. After all, the one who had created all these miracles was Luo Feng. Since long ago, Luo Feng had already become a legend within Universe Ocean. My godly power has, once again, condensed by 100 times. Behind Luo Feng, 6 pairs of wings were outspread. For longer than 6 trillion eras, the 5th pair of wings simply could not be repaired, but now, in an instant, it was fully restored. But the godly power reserve within my miniature universe is still insufficient. If I were to transform into an ocean now, the maximum diameter possible would most likely only be slightly more than 2 light-years. Previously, his godly power reserve had been totally sufficient for him to become a true god of void space. But he was still far from becoming an eternal true god. Fortunately, my current miniature universe is much bigger than before. The swallowing and transforming of godly power has become much more efficient, too. Luo Feng nodded. Milky Way Holy Land universe was unbelievably huge. Upon absorbing the chaotic airflow, it formed a gigantic whirlpool that even a universe master would have had to travel in a palace true treasure in order to pass through. Otherwise, anything would be strangled to death. Who? With one stride out, Luo Feng left the space of the origin and arrived at the 9 sectors mountain of Milky Way Holy Land universe. All of Luo Feng's family members were waiting for him. Ha! Luo Feng laughed as he walked toward them. Suddenly, his expression froze with that smile plastered on his face. An invisible ripple brushed past Milky Way Holy Land universe to convey a piece of information. 1 year. Luo Feng mumbled to himself. Now, he clearly understood. He had broken through to become an eternal true god. Within a year, he had to transcend reincarnation. Even though it was said to be required within a year, Teacher Origin had successfully achieved his breakthrough a month before Luo Feng. If both of them were to transcend reincarnation together, then the time remaining was, in fact, only 11 months. Father, mother. Luo Feng laughed and continued with the conversation he was having with his parents. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Luo Feng and Teacher Origin met once, had a discussion, and decided that after 10 months, Luo Feng would head to Tilted Peak Sector to try to transcend reincarnation. So he had spent the past 10 months making all the necessary arrangements. In the past 10 months, Luo Feng met up with many people. Some were from his time on Earth. There were included individuals from his time growing up and maturing. Some were those who had influenced him or those whom he had influenced. There were just too many people. His children from the pulse of remote ocean, like Shimo, were all still alive. He met up with old friends from the pulse of Earth, like Wei Wen, and others. Back when he had first joined Virtual Universe Company, he had gotten to know many good friends, including Bo Lan, Rong Jun, Tu Man, and Wu Ka. Although they were all quite talented, it was still extremely difficult for them to become universe masters, and even more difficult if they wanted to become true god. This was not an uncommon occurrence. Luo Feng's son, Luo Hai, had great opportunities, including conditions that would have been considered perfect. But he had never been able to achieve a breakthrough to become a universe master. Bo Lan and Rong Jun had finally become universe masters, while Wu Ka remained a universe knight. As for the batch of great beings from the War of Talents, there were some who had been annihilated while honing their skills, and there were even some who had not become undying fighters. They had not been able to wait until the day the humans could achieve the status of an ancient civilization. Previously, the three brothers of Earth had been Hong, who was naturally a true god. It was needless for Luo Feng to even mention this. As for Thunderlord, even with the help of Luo Feng and the Pulse of Earth, it was still difficult for Thunderlord to become a universe master. After all, to the Pulse of Earth, Thunderlord was unquestionably a respected elder. True Yang, too, was merely a universe master at this juncture. Teacher, within my miniature universe, you are perfectly capable of achieving a breakthrough to become a true god. Luo Feng told True Yang earnestly. To me, segregating another miniature universe is really not a big deal. That official Po Yu, True Yang, on the contrary, was feeling quite uneasy. Back then, on Demon Note Mountain, although she stabbed me in the back, she had her reasons for doing so, Luo Feng said. Besides, that was a matter that took place ages ago. Teacher, do not take it to heart. Back then, the reason why official Po Yu had plotted against Luo Feng was simply to take revenge on True Yang. This involved a love story. True Yang's lover had died long ago, and True Yang felt especially guilty. He knew that official Po Yu hated him, yet he could only put up with it all. When investigation results indicated that official Po Yu had plotted against Luo Feng, True Yang had pleaded for official Po Yu. This time around, amidst all the migrations into miniature universes, official Po Yu had moved into Teacher Origin's miniature universe. This was also because True Yang had intervened along the way to help official Po Yu. This blurred the nature of the relationship between official Po Yu and True Yang. Before Luo Feng set off for his journey to achieve his breakthrough of a reincarnation era, he gave his disciples one more lesson. Then off he went. Outside Tilted Peak Sector, a ship was suspended. On it were many figures, including Primal Chaos City Leader, True Yang, Sitting Mountain Guest, Luo Hongguo, Gong Xinlan, Xu Xin, Luo Ping, Luo Hai, Luo Hua, Darkness True God, Ice Mountain True God, and Longyang True God. They had all come to send Luo Feng and Teacher Origin off. Sitting Mountain Guest was the most relaxed of the lot. Rest assured, he said. If even Luo Feng is in danger while breaking through the reincarnation era, then East Emperor Ancestor and Purple Moon Ancestor must have long ago lost their lives. Su. Far in the distance were Star Tower and a ship. Both were flying toward Tilted Peak Sector. This video will end here.